The sky above the royal city of Eloria was always purple during sunset. It used to be Queen Lorentha's favorite time of day. Now, she hardly looked outside. Her chamber was dark, quiet, and cold. The bright stars outside meant nothing to her. Anymore? Not since the day her daughter was taken. Ariel, her only child, had been missing for 3 long cycles. No trace, no signal. Just the wreckage of the transport vessel that had been carrying her. Lorentha had sent out her best scouts, warships, and searchers across the nearby systems. Nothing came back. Some said the child was gone forever. Others said raiders took her to unknown space. All the queen knew was that her heart felt empty. Lyrentha had ruled the throne for over 80 years. She was once called the Iron Voice of Eloria, firm and proud. But now she spoke only in whispers. Her people saw her less and less. Even her most trusted advisors grew worried. The empire needed its queen, but the queen needed her daughter in a small mining colony far across the outer sectors. A human scout named Nolan finished checking his scanner. His ship, an old explorer class named Wayfarer, hovered over a quiet asteroid field. The colony had sent a strange signal days ago, but now it was silent. Nolan volunteered to check it out. He had been working alone for years. Humans weren't exactly trusted in most alien sectors. But Nolan had a habit of going places others didn't. He liked the silence, liked finding old wrecks, crashed ships, or forgotten tech. He wasn't expecting to find anything alive, but inside a small, wrecked escape pod, hidden between sharp rocks, he found her. At first he thought it was just debris, then the scanner beeped life sign. One, very weak. He opened the pod carefully, hand on his sidearm just in case. Inside, curled up in a strange glowing cocoon, was a small alien girl. Her skin was silver blue, and her hair was long and tangled. She was unconscious, breathing slowly. Nolan's heart skipped. Like royalty, her robe, though dirty, had golden patterns. "Hey," Katie whispered, kneeling down. He touched her forehead. Hot, feverish. She needed help fast. He carried her back to his ship. The moment they were inside, the pod behind them blinked once and then exploded.
Ow.
Some kind of failsafe.
Whoever left her didn't want anyone else.
Finding her, Nolan laid her down on the medbed and scanned her vitals. She was dehydrated, undernourished, but alive. Alien languages filled the screen. Luckily, the ship's translation module kicked in. The name in the pod's record said Eliral. No last name. No title. He gave her clean water through a small tube and wrapped her in thermal blankets. He didn't know what species she was. He didn't know if anyone was coming for her. But he knew one thing: he couldn't leave her behind. Hours passed. Then, suddenly her eyes opened. She sat up quickly, breathing fast. Her eyes were glowing wide with fear. Nolan stepped back, raising his hands. "Easy, easy, kid. You're safe. My name's Nolan. Found you in a pod. Just calm down, okay?" She looked around, confused. Then she whispered something in her own language. Nolan pulled out a small translator tool and pointed it at her. She repeated the words. The screen flashed. "Where? His mother?" Nolan blinked. "You mean your mom?" I don't know. I found you alone." The girl touched her chest, then her forehead, speaking a few more words. The translator struggled, then showed Eliral, daughter of the queen. Nolan stared. "Wait, queen. Like royalty." Eliral nodded slowly. He looked at her closely now. The robe, the jewelry, even the small badge on her collarall made sense. He had just rescued the missing daughter of the alien queen of Eloria. A girl the whole galaxy believed was dead. "Okay," he said, sitting down. "This is big." He didn't know much about alien politics. But he knew what happened when powerful families thought their heirs were dead and then suddenly weren't. Wars, chaos, cover dash-ups. But before he could plan his next move, the proximity alarm rang. 3 red signals blinked on the screen. Incoming ships. Fast. He scanned them. Not government. Not rescue teams. Raiders. How the hell did they find us? He muttered. He jumped into the pilot's seat. Eliral sat behind him, gripping the chair tightly. Hold on, princess, he said, firing up the engines. We're going to make a run for it. The wayfarers shot into the dark, weaving through rocks and mining debris. Behind them, the raiders opened fire. Eliral closed her eyes, and something strange happened. The ship's signal suddenly vanished from radar. The raiders lost track of them for a second, just enough for Nolan to escape into warp. He glanced. Back? Did you do that? Eliral didn't answer. She just stared ahead with glowing eyes. Nolan realized he had more than just a child on board. He had someone special, someone powerful, and he had just painted a target on his back. Nolan leaned back in his chair, breathing hard. The stars stretched around them as the ship entered hyperspace. The raiders were gone for now. The human pilot stared at the blinking lights on the console, trying to calm his nerves. His small ship wasn't made for fights. One mistake and both of them would have been gone. Behind him, Eliral sat quietly on the floor, hugging her knees. She had not spoken since they escaped. Her silver blue eyes stared at the metal wall, lost in thought. The translator tool rested. Beside her, unused. Nolan stood slowly and walked over to her. Hey, he said gently, you okay? Eliral looked up at him, her face tired. You've saved me. Yeah, he said, sitting across from her. You're safe here. Not going to let anyone hurt you. She blinked, then asked, why? Nolan gave a soft chuckle. Guess I'm just that kind of guy. She tilted her head. Human. Kind. Maybe. Or maybe I just don't like seeing kids scared and alone. She stayed quiet for a moment. Then she asked, you. I believe you're someone very important. Not dangerous? No, he said. You're just a kid who's been through too much. He stood up and grabbed a small meal pack from the storage unit. He heated it up and brought it to her. Not sure what your kind eats, but this one's. No meat, no sugar. Kind of boring, actually. Eliral smelled it, then slowly took a bite. Her eyes widened. Warm. Yeah, it's better than those dry rations. As she ate, Nolan checked his nav system. They had jumped far, but not far. Enough. He needed a plan. The moment he contacted Aloria's government, he'd be noticed. And if the raiders were watching the signals, he couldn't risk calling for help just yet. Eliral, he said. Can you tell me what happened? How did you end up in that pod? She looked down. Tack, big ship, fire. I was pulled away. They said, I must not die. They put me in the pod. Who were they? My mother's guards, she whispered. They died. Nolan nodded slowly. It made sense. The Queen's guards had sacrificed themselves to protect the heir, he asked. Gently, you remember where you were taken from? Yes. The stars were wrong. Too dark. No moons. He noted her words. Maybe they could help trace the path. I'm taking you home, he said. Back to your mother. Her hands tightened. Mother thinks I'm dead. She'll be glad. You're not. Eliral looked up. You think so? I know so. But the road back would not be easy. The Elorian Empire was deep in protected space. Nolan's human ship was not allowed there. Humans were still seen as young, reckless, and too bold. Many alien races feared them. He would have to sneak in, or hope someone would listen to reason. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. This is going to be tricky. Days passed as they traveled quietly through unmarked lanes. Eliral spent most of her time near the window, watching the stars. Sometimes she'd hum a soft tune. Other times she asked questions. Do humans have kings and queens? Not anymore, Nolan said. We have leaders. They change every few years, strange, she said. I think the same about your world. She laughed softly. It was the first time Nolan had heard her laugh. It warmed the cold ship. As they neared the Elorian border, Nolan activated the stealth modules. His ship darkened, power levels dropped, and lights dimmed. Hold on, he said. We're entering restricted space. What happens now? Either we sneak in, or they catch us and shoot us down. Comforting, she said with a small smile. Suddenly a red alert flashed on the screen. Incoming signal, Nolan said, his heart racing. They found us. The screen lit up with a cold voice. Unidentified vessel, you are entering. Sovereign space. Identify or be destroyed. Nolan pressed the come. This is Scout Vessel Wayfarer. I request permission to land. Humans are not allowed in Elorian space. Wait, I have someone important on board. Leave now or be eliminated. Nolan turned to Eliral. It's time. She stepped forward and stood in front of the ship's camera. Her face appeared. On the screen, there was silence then. This cannot be. Another voice came in, more emotional. Is that the princess? Yes, Nolan said. I found her. She's alive. More silence. Then orders were shouted in alien tongue. The signal ended. The red alert stopped. Eli Ariel looked up at him. Did it work? He smiled. We're about to find out. Soon, for escort ships arrived. Instead of firing, they surrounded the Wayfarer and gently guided it toward the capital. Nolan could see the planet now glowing green and silver. Rings spinning softly around it. It's the homeworld of Eloria. The ship landed slowly in a royal hangar. Guards in golden armor lined up. A medical team stood ready as the hatch opened. Eliral stepped out first. Then, sound filled the hangar. Gasps, tears, and the rushing steps of a mother who had waited too long. Queen Lyrantha ran past her guards. She dropped her crown. She didn't care about rules or titles. She dropped to her knees and held her daughter tight. Eliral whispered, Mother. Lyrantha was crying, shaking, unable to speak. She just held her child as if afraid she might vanish again. Nolan stood back, watching. The moment unfolds. He didn't belong here. Not really, but somehow. This was where he was meant to be. Nolan stayed near the edge of the royal hangar, silent and unnoticed, as the queen wept into her daughter's shoulder. No, he didn't want to interrupt. It wasn't his moment. It belonged to them. Queen Lyrantha finally pulled back, her hands gently, touched Aliral's face, checking every detail, as if making sure the girl was truly real. Her eyes were red from tears, but filled with life again. My starlight, the queen whispered. You came back to me. Eliral smiled softly. A human brought me home. Lyrantha turned sharply, her eyes falling on Nolan. For a second, her face was unreadable. The Queen of Eloria, a ruler known across the stars, now stood face to face with a simple human explorer. You. She said. Nolan stepped forward slowly. I'm Nolan, scout pilot. I found her in a damaged pod near the outer zones. I didn't know who she was at first. I just helped. Lyrantha looked him over. Her guards tensed behind her, ready to step in. But then she nodded. You saved my daughter. You risked your life. Anyone would have done the same, Nolan replied. No, she said firmly. Not anyone. Not in this galaxy. She stepped aside and motioned. Come, you are our guest now. Nolan followed them through glowing halls made of crystal and light. The palace was massive, filled with flowing water, hanging plants, and quiet music that seemed to come from the air itself. Alien symbols glowed softly on the walls. The royal guards kept watching him closely, unsure of what to think. Inside the healing chamber, Eliral was gently placed on a floating bed. A team of healers began scanning her, checking every wound, marking every scar. Nolan stayed near the doorway, unsure if he should stay. Lyrantha turned to him. Your name again? Nolan? You are a human. Your kind is not trusted here, he said with a slight smile. The queen tilted her head. Yet you protected my heir. You flew through Raider space. Could have sold her for power or credits. Nolan looked at Eliral. She was scared. Lost. I couldn't walk away. Lorentha studied him. Many races speak of humans as wild, emotional, and selfish. You have shown me something else. A royal advisor entered. Your Highness, the council demands answers. Rumors of the heir's return are spreading fast. Let them talk, she said sharply. They will wait. As the queen left with her advisors, Nolan sat down in a corner chair. He looked at Eliral, who was now sleeping peacefully. Something in his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time, connection. That night, Nolan was given a room in the guest tower. Everything was made of smooth stone and soft light. Alien art hung on the walls, and the bed felt like sleeping on air. Still, he couldn't rest. He walked to the balcony and stared up at the stars. He wondered what would happen now. Would they send him back? Thank him? Then erase him from their records? Or worse, would some rival noble blame him for bringing trouble? A soft knock came. He turned and found Eliral standing there, wearing a long blue robe. Shouldn't you be resting? He asked. I couldn't sleep. Me neither. She stepped beside him. They looked at the stars together. I heard the healers, she said. They told Mother I'm changing. Changing how? They say something awakened in me, some power. I felt it too. When the raiders chased us, I made our signal disappear. I didn't know I could, Nolan remembered. That moment, the way their ship vanished from scans. It was her. Do you know what it means? He asked. Not yet, she said softly, but it scares the others. Not me. She smiled. Thank you, Nolan. He looked at her, surprised. For what? For treating me like a person, not just a title. The next morning, Nolan was called to the Royal Council chamber. Tall alien leaders stood in a circle, wearing long robes and glowing badges. They stared at him as if he were a strange animal. This is the human, one of them said. Yes, Lorentha replied. This is Nolan, the man who brought my daughter. Back, a few council members whispered. Some looked doubtful. Others were clearly angry. With respect, Your Majesty, said one tall alien. How do we know this human did not stage the event? Perhaps he worked with the raiders. Perhaps this was a plan. Nolan stepped forward. I didn't come here to be praised or blamed. I came because a kid needed help. Another counselor spoke. And now he stands in our heartland. This could bring risk. Lorentha raised her voice. Enough. I trust him. And my daughter trusts him. The room fell silent. She looked at Nolan. You may stay here, for now. You are under royal protection. Nolan nodded. Thank you, Your Majesty. After the council ended, a guard named Rowland approached Nolan. Not tall and strict, but not rude. You're not like the others, Rowland said. Most humans we meet are loud and foolish. I've heard that before, Nolan replied. Rowland smiled faintly. Still, keep your eyes open. Not everyone wants you here, I figured. Days passed. Nolan walked through the city, saw strange shops, floating gardens, and creatures that shimmered like fireflies. People stared at him with curiosity. Some bowed, some turned away. But everywhere he went, Eliral was nearby. They talked, laughed, watched stars together. Slowly a bond formed. Not just between two people, but between two worlds. News of Eliral's return spread fast. Across planets, systems, and trading stations, people spoke of the miracle. The lost heir of Eloria had come back. Some celebrated, others grew quiet. Not everyone liked what her return meant. Nolan walked through the palace garden with Eliral, the sky above filled with two glowing moons. Soft wind moved through the silver trees. Eliral held a small glowing orb in her hands. It was a gift from her mother, a memory crystal that played old songs. My mother used to sing this to me when I was little, Eliral said. Before things got busy. Before the war? She must have missed you so much, Nolan replied. She stopped singing when I disappeared. she whispered. But now, the songs are back. Nolan didn't know what to say, so he just sat beside her. He noticed the changes in her. She spoke more, smiled more. But at night, she still woke up from dreams. Sometimes she'd call out names, sometimes she'd cried without sound. Whatever happened during her time in the pod, or before that, it stayed with her. The next morning, the Queen invited Nolan to the strategy hall. Large displays showed maps, enemy routes, and threat reports. You were not just a guest anymore, Liarentha said. You saw things near the border, things we missed. Nolan looked at the maps. He recognized the sector where he found Eliral. He also noticed strange travel paths routes raiders used, hidden through dust clouds and dead zones. This here, he said, pointing to a spiral cluster, is where I escaped them. They used fake signals to hide. And they were tracking us, not by radio, maybe by scent or energy trails. I don't know how, but they knew where we were. A tech advisor nodded. We will scan the area again. Perhaps with your help we can. Finally locate the raider's nest. I'll help however I can, Nolan said. Lyrentha placed a hand on the console. They took my child. They made me think she was gone forever. I want them found. You're not alone anymore, Nolan said quietly. That evening, a special dinner was held in honor of Eliral's return. Many important guests arrived, ambassadors, scholars, and leaders. The palace halls glowed with crystal lights. Food from across the empire was served. Strange fruits, glowing drinks, and warm dishes filled the long tables. Nolan sat beside Eliral, feeling a bit out of place in his borrowed, formal clothes, but she smiled at him often, keeping him calm. Suddenly, an old alien noble stood up and raised his voice. We welcome back the princess, but we must ask, what is the human's place in all of this? The room grew quiet. He is not one of us. He walks our halls, sits with our rulers. Does he plan to stay forever? Nolan stood slowly. I never asked to stay. I only came to bring Eliral home. The Queen rose beside him, and he did what none of our own could. He crossed danger, faced death, and held no greed in his heart. Some nodded. Others looked unsure. Let us not forget, Liarentha added. Our true enemies are still out there. Eliral stood up. Her voice was soft, but strong. He is my protector. He is my friend, and I trust him. Those words held weight. Even the doubters could not speak after that. Later, as the guests left, Eliral walked beside Nolan in the quiet hall. Did I say too much? She asked. No, he said. You were brave. Some of them still don't like you. That's okay, Nolan replied, as long as you do. She smiled. Always. The next day, scouts returned with news. They had found signs of a hidden raider base, deep inside a cold moon near the outer sector. Queen called for a plan this time. She would not send others. She would go herself. Are you sure? Nolan asked. They hurt my daughter, she said. I must see their end.
Eliral
Stepped forward. Then I'll go too? No, Liarentha said. You must stay safe. I'm not weak anymore, Eliral replied. Nolan will be with me. Liarentha looked at the two of them. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she nodded. Very well, we go together. They boarded the royal ship Sereth, a large vessel with wings of energy and armor of shining metal. Nolan joined the planning team. Eliral trained with the palace guards. She learned to control her strange gift-making energy vanish, bending light, and hiding presence. On the 7th day, the fleet left for the cold moon as they neared it. The scanner showed activity ships, weapons, shields. It's a full nest, said the captain. More than we thought. Nolan stood on the deck watching as the enemy base appeared through the foggy mist. This is it, he whispered. Eliral stood beside him, her eyes glowing. The Queen gave the order. Begin the strike. The stars lit up with fire. The cold moon had no air, no light, and no sound. Sharp mountains of frozen dust rose from the surface like broken teeth. Buried deep within those mountains was the enemy base hidden for years, protected by ancient tech and stolen shields now. The Queen's fleet stood above it. Nolan stood on the command deck of the royal ship Sarath, looking at the live images. Enemy ships were rising, fast and ready. Turrets opened, charging weapons. Fighters swarmed like angry insects. The captain called out, they're launching countermeasures. 10 ships inbound. Queen Lyrantha stepped forward. Activate main. Shields. Keep our flanks tight. Do not let them escape. The royal fleet began to move. Golden ships formed a circle, protecting the Queen's command vessel. Light cannons fired beams of energy across space. Enemy ships dodged and weaved, returning fire with missiles and spikes. Nolan watched closely. Gripping the edge of the console, we need to distract their center. They're protecting something down there. We believe their command center is deep below the surface, the strategist replied. Heavily protected. Cannot target it directly. What if we sneak in? Nolan asked. Use a fast dropship. I know their style. I've escaped them before, Lyrantha looked at him. Too risky. They will destroy any small ship before it lands. Then Elyril stepped forward. Not if they can't see it. Everyone turned to her. I can hide the ship, she said quietly. Like I did before. Nola nodded. It worked once. It can work again. Lyrantha's eyes narrowed. Her daughter, now so brave, was offering herself again. After everything, still she knew the girl was right. Very well, she said. Take a squad and go. Reach the center. Find who leads them. Minutes later, a small dropship was prepared. Nolan, Elyril, and 4 elite guards boarded it. The ship was fast and light, built for short jumps. Elyril sat in the center, eyes closed, focusing her gift as they neared the surface. Enemy scans passed right over them, but nothing triggered. They were invisible. You're doing great, Nolan whispered. Elyril nodded, her hands glowing softly. The ship landed quietly in a dark canyon. The squad moved fast, using shadow paths to sneak past turrets and patrol bots. The entrance to the base was built into the rock. Heavy doors blocked the way. Nolan placed a small device on the panel. This will take a few seconds. Suddenly, a sound echoed a low growl, followed by fast footsteps. Incoming. One of the guards shouted. Strange armored creatures came. Rushing from both sides, Rodder's part machine, Partalian, her eyes glowed red. They fired plasma weapons and swung sharp claws. The guards returned fire, forming a circle around Elyril. Nolan pulled out his blaster and fired back, covering the door. Eli raised her hand. A soft wave of blue light spread from her body. In a blink, their group disappeared again. They can't see us, she said, breathing fast. Go. Device beeped. The door slid open. They rushed inside. The inside of the base was dark and full of strange machines. Stolen tech from dozens of races glowed along the walls. The deeper they went, the colder it got. In the center chamber, they found it a control room filled with screens and signals. At the far end stood a tall figure in black armor. His helmet covered his face, and a long cloak moved behind him. You made it, the voice said, cold and deep. The child returns and brings her pet human. Nolan raised his blaster. You again. Should have died in the drift, the figure growled. Yeah, Nolan replied. You should have aimed better. The guards surrounded the room. Elyril stepped forward. You tried to kill me? You failed. I did. Not want you dead? The armored one said. I wanted you hidden, gone, so the Empire would break. Why? She asked. Because your mother's peace was too strong. Because unity is weakness. War brings profit. You're a coward, Elyril said, and you lost. Nolan fired first. The battle began. Blasters roared. The guards charged, the armored. Leader was strong. He fought with a glowing blade, moving fast and hard. But Elyril stepped forward and reached out her hand. Light burst from her fingers, wrapping the enemy in chains of starlight. He struggled, falling to his knees. Your war ends now, she said. The leader growled. You are just a child. No, Elyril said. I am the heir of Eloria. With one last pulse, She pushed him back. The guards moved in, locking him in an energy cage. Nolan walked over, catching his breath. You okay? She nodded, shaking slightly. Yes, I am now. They uploaded the base data and sent the signal above the moon. The Queen's fleet saw the message. LYRENTHA. Smiled. Bring them home. Hours later, the dropship returned to the Sarath. The Queen met them at the ramp. When she saw Elyrel safe and strong, she pulled her close. You are more than I ever dreamed, she whispered. Elyrel hugged her tightly. I'm proud to be your daughter. Nolan stood back, smiling. Rallan the guard walked up beside him. You did well, human. We did it together, Nolan replied. Maybe you're not just a visitor anymore. The stars around them burned bright as the cold moon below went silent for the last time. A week after the cold moon mission, the skies over Eloria were calm again. The enemy base had been destroyed and the raider leader captured. The Queen's fleet had returned in victory, and her people cheered like never before. Banners flew across cities. Children lit skylights that floated high into the air. But inside the palace, it wasn't noise that filled the halls. It was peace. Elyrel sat beside the royal lake, dipping her hand into the cool water. Fish with glowing fins swam near her. Fingers, her reflection smiled back at her, calm and free. Nolan sat a few steps away, fixing a small cum device that had been damaged during the battle. How's it going? Elyrel asked. Well, it doesn't explode anymore, he said. So that's a win, she laughed. You're not very good with tools, are you? Nope, but I'm great at flying into danger. I shared a quiet moment. Nearby, Queen, Liarentha stood with two of her closest advisors. Watching them from the garden path, she's stronger because of him, the advisor said. Lyrentha nodded. She found her light again, the advisor asked. And what of the human? Lyrentha looked toward Nolan. Came here as a stranger. Now he feels like family. In the following days, preparations began for a rare royal ceremony. Something the Elorian Empire hadn't done in decades. It was called the Blessing of Starlight, symbol of new beginnings and honored bonds. Queen Lyrentha wanted it to mark the return of her daughter and to thank the one who brought her home. Nolan wasn't told much at first. All he knew was that everyone kept adjusting his clothes, trimming his hair, and polishing his boots. I feel like I'm being turned into a statue, he whispered to Elyrel as they stood in a waiting room. You look fine, she said with a smile, maybe even royal. He rolled his eyes. Great, it's just what I need. Soon, large gates opened and music filled the hall. Thousands of citizens watched from glass balconies. Golden light flowed from the ceiling like water. The Queen stood at the front, proud. Elyrel walked beside her, dressed in a silver robe that shimmered like stars. Nolan followed, I'm sure, but steady. The Queen raised her voice. Before all stars and all worlds, we honor two lights, one returned from shadow, and one who crossed shadows to bring her home. Cheers echoed. Lyrentha turned to Nolan. You gave me back my child. You gave her courage. And you gave this. Empire, a new path. Nolan looked down, humbled. I only did what I thought was right. And that is what makes you worthy, she replied. She reached out and placed a small emblem over his shoulder. It was shaped like a star and a wing half. From Eloria, half from Earth, we name you Guardian of Starlight, a protector of peace, and a friend of the crown. The hall rang with light and music. Elyrel stepped forward and gave him a small bow. Thank you, Nolan, he bowed back. Always. The days after the ceremony were full of celebration, but also quiet decisions. Nolan stood on a balcony one evening, watching the stars. He knew a part of him still missed, space the unknown, the wandering. He wasn't made to sit in a palace forever. Elyr joined him. You're thinking about leaving? He nodded a little. I never stay anywhere too long. Could stay here, she said. There's always more to do. More to learn, maybe, he said. But even if I go, it's not goodbye. She looked up. Will you come back? If you ever need me, he said, I'll fly through fire again. She held out her hand. Then take this. She gave him a small crystal, the same one that had her mother's song. So you don't forget us, she said. I couldn't. If I tried. A few days later, Nolan stood by his old ship, Wayfarer, repaired and refueled. Queen Lorentha came to see him off. You changed more than you know. He smiled. So did I. They shook hands, queen and human, ruler and wanderer. Eli, Ariel, stepped forward last. She didn't say much. She just hugged him. Be safe, she whispered. You too. As the ship rose into the sky, the people of Eloria watched in silence. The one who came from nowhere, who brought hope, was now a legend, and across the stars. Stories began to spread. A tale of a lost princess. A tale. A human who brought her home. A tale of starlit bonds that changed the galaxy forever.